beaucoup. Et je ne parlais très bien le français parce que j'avais été... Alors, mais je peux faire un peu d'effort. Je divide les conférences en deux parts. Le premier, je parlerai français parce que j'avais écrit pour parler en français. Et après, in le second part, avec l'explication de le projet, je parlerai anglais. Il y a beaucoup d'espagnol ici, mais c'est un peu stupide parce que peut-être il serait meilleur de parler français, mais mon français c'est pas très bon. Je suis désolé parce que j'ai commencé à étudier le français, c'était moi, ils sont mon étudiant qui a enseigné moi le français, mais je crois que c'est pas suffisant pour donner une conférence. Alors, merci. Je peux guider initialement ces conférences. Les conférences, il a été préparé pour les étudiants. Alors, je suis un peu désolé parce que probablement il y a beaucoup de professeurs. Les réflexions que je vais faire, ils sont très simples pour les professeurs, mais je crois que pour les étudiants, ils sont bons. Sommes-nous en train d'assister à un monde où le manque d'espoir et d'aspiration est la principale caractéristique, à un monde où seule la loi du marché est la référence suprême? Nous communiquons en permanence, mais nous ne prenons pas le temps de penser au temps que nous voulons créer. Tout est faible et superficiel. Il n'existe pas l'OIT et l'architecture est le reflet de ces temps. Ne sommes-nous pas en train de créer une architecture où le paraître est plus important que l'être? C'est dans ce contexte défini par cette préoccupation qu'évolue mon architecture qui, disons-le tout de suite, prétend n'être autre qu'une réponse personnelle à un monde particulier défini par les questions qui m'intéressent et qui me préoccupent. Heureusement, il existe beaucoup de manières de faire de l'architecture de valeur. Ces bonnes réflexions ne sont autres que ma seule manière de faire, de penser et d'enseigner l'architecture, naturellement peuplée de contradictions. Je crois en l'architecture qui va plus loin que la simple préoccupation de l'image dérivée du marché. Durant ces dernières années, peut-être comme en conséquence d'une société qui présente comme grande valeur la fin des idéologies et le triomphe du marché, nous les architectes, nous avons trop confondu l'architecture et le simple objet architectonique. Un objet architectonique développé dans les laboratoires et dépourvu de références, plus préoccupé par son image extérieure, par sa capacité à surprendre que par ses contenus. Nous ne devons pas oublier que l'architecture sert à une société, née dans un contexte et dans un temps. C'est pourquoi l'architecture va plus loin que l'objet. Elle est plus complexe et riche et elle ne doit jamais oublier son composant idéologique. C'est grâce à cette seule conviction qui revendique la nécessité d'une architecture basée sur des contenus que je peux exercer mon travail. Je crois qu'on doit surpasser toutes les calligraphies superficielles qui a abondé dans les objets architectoniques durant ces dernières années. La forme dans l'architecture ne peut seulement se comprendre que comme sujet de contenu. La calligraphie n'est seulement qu'une apparence. Ainsi, je m'intéresse surtout et fondamentalement à l'espace public et à la capacité que celui-ci a d'établir des relations entre les différentes architectures. Les relations établies à partir de la considération et la mise en valeur de l'espace public est toujours, à mon sens, au-dessus de l'objet, puisque ce sont ces relations qui pourvoient l'architecture d'une dimension citadine, d'une dimension constructive des villes et d'une authentique valeur. Je crois en une architecture qui redéfinit l'essence de l'interdisciplinarité. La relation disciplinaire entre l'architecture et les autres disciplines et les réalités est un fait. Ça s'est toujours produit tout au long de l'histoire. L'architecture, en tant que discipline sociale et de service, implique une curiosité intellectuelle. Cette curiosité, c'est besoin de se poser des questions est une condition requise préalable pour faire d'architecture. Cependant, de nos jours, peut-être comme conséquence d'une de solution des principes, on a compris ou une quasi-disparition de la discipline architectonique. Je m'intéresse seulement à une relation interdisciplinaire qui contribue à améliorer la réponse architectonique à partir de la considération et de l'affirmation de notre discipline. L'architecture et nous, les architectes, nous devrons continuer d'être ceux qui prennent les décisions finales au sujet du programme, de la relation avec les lieux, de l'espace ou des processus de matérialisation des projets. D'après seulement cette croyance, et sans renoncer à notre fondament, admettant les différentes manières de faire face aux projets d'architecture, nous pouvons comprendre une relation interdisciplinaire positive et non dissolutive. C'est pourquoi je défends une conception généraliste de l'architecture d'après Si vous me permettez, je vous indiquerai quels sont les principaux points qui, appartenant strictement au corps disciplinaire de l'architecture, influencent mon travail. Le premier a quelque chose à voir avec le lieu et la relation avec celui-ci. Un lieu n'est pas seulement physique, il est aussi, et surtout, idéologique. Autant un lieu qu'on image qu'un lieu qui existe. Autant un lieu qu'on désire qu'un lieu qu'on transforme. Le deuxième a quelque chose à voir avec l'espace et de manière plus particulière avec la relation entre l'espace privé et l'espace public. Les morceaux d'espace et les relations entre le public et le privé, les relations physiques et visuelles, ont produit quelques-uns des moments les plus fructueux de l'histoire de l'architecture. Pour finir, la matérialisation, les matériaux et ses techniques, ses capacités d'exprimer une idée et sa valeur pour être construite, condensent sans doute quelques-unes des réflexions les plus intéressantes du moment. Depuis ces dernières années, on a trop utilisé le terme spéculation dans l'architecture. Je préfère parler aux élèves d'investigation comme quelque chose d'opposé à la spéculation. Souvent, derrière ces concepts de spéculation, il n'y a pas eu de développement, à part une architecture de calligraphie et d'images. Une série d'images sans aucun sens qui apparaissent dans les revues d'architecture avec écoute sur des dates de péremption. L'investigation, par contre, implique une connaissance et une rigueur des contenus. Superficialité ou densité, c'est ça l'alternative. Les élèves doivent fondamentalement comprendre qu'ils ont le droit de se tromper, qu'ils doivent aller plus loin et en assumer les risques, mais que ces risques doivent être illustrés, faire l'usage d'une connaissance à une pure apparence ou à une pure image. Je ne m'intéresse pas trop aux besoins d'une identité. L'identité me semble synonyme de recherche d'une image, d'un code calligraphique qui se répète, indépendamment du problème et du lieu à laquelle l'architecture doit faire face. Je préfère parler d'une unité conceptuelle comme une chose qui, démontrant quelles sont les préoccupations et la manière de faire de chaque architecture, offre néanmoins un mécanisme de travail capable de comprendre les différences de chaque problème et de chaque lieu. J'aime penser que j'ai tout le temps de faire de l'architecture, même si ce n'est pas vrai. Le temps est le matériel le plus important, comme l'est aussi la lumière pour faire de l'architecture, pour la penser, pour la construire, et aussi pour en profiter. Je ne connais encore aucun bon bâtiment qui ne s'améliore pas avec le temps. Et cependant, je connais beaucoup de bâtiments, ayant apparemment beaucoup de succès, qui ne supportaient pas le passage du temps. Et je ne fais pas seulement référence au sens constructif, mais aussi au sens architectonique. En termes instrumentaux, comme je l'ai déjà indiqué précédemment, je préfère penser aux sections et aux étages des bâtiments qu'à sur leurs images elles-mêmes. L'espace intérieur, aujourd'hui tellement abandonné, et la relation de celui avec la ville, avec l'espace public, peut aussi être compris dans des termes structurels et pas seulement dans l'apparence. Je crois en la recherche de la beauté dans l'architecture, mais cette beauté, je ne l'entends pas uniquement dans des termes sensoriels. Je l'entends lié au contenu et même plus à une dimension éthique de l'architecture. Le processus de progrès dans l'architecture consiste précisément à substituer les certitudes de la jeunesse, sensorielles et intuitives, par des questions en rapport avec le contenu et les valeurs de ce que nous faisons. C'est pour cela que vous l'avouez, j'ai chaque fois plus de doutes. En parlant de la dimension éthique de l'architecture, permettez-moi de faire une remarque au sujet de la responsabilité de l'architecture sur les moyens. J'ai toujours pensé que la relation entre les moyens utilisés dans un projet et les objectifs réussis devant être adéquate. Ceci est pour moi un concept qui me rapproche de mon idée de la beauté. C'est pour cela que je crois que pour répondre à une société qui ne peut pas se permettre de gaspiller des moyens, ce dont on a besoin, c'est de plus de responsabilités. Mes responsabilités est dans ce cas précis synonyme de plus d'intelligence architectonique. C'est pourquoi, face aux autres idées qui défendent l'apport de moyens techniques extraordinaires, de nouvelles technologies chaque fois plus sophistiquées, ou pire encore, celles qui prétendent développer une sortie de style environnementaliste, je réclame simplement plus d'architecture, plus d'intelligence, plus de connaissances. On ne peut pas plus avoir une relation de complexe en rapport avec elle. C'est pour cela que je ne m'intéresse pas beaucoup à ce qui rend publique l'assomption d'une architecture dont l'objectif est de disparaître et les bâtiments qui se sont les mieux mis en relation avec la nature sont les fruits de la pensée la plus abstraite et, parlant d'une activité humaine, la plus naturelle. Je défends donc une architecture qui comprend la respectueuse relation avec la nature du point de vue de l'exercice abstrait et artificiel de l'architecture. Ce n'est pas pour cela qu'elle est moins respectueuse avec la nature. Pour terminer, je revendiquerai les termes de service. L'architecture et son exercice, c'est du service. Mais service ne veut pas dire servilité. En d'autres mots, je ne crois pas en l'architecture qui est ensemble reflet de la société qu'elle sert. Qu'est-ce que nous a demandé la société jusqu'à maintenant? Seulement construction ou spectacle. Mon idée du service a en ce sens quelque chose à voir avec une certaine idée de transgression. Il s'agit de donner plus que ce que la société réclame. Pour cela, nous devons récupérer, comme je disais au début, dépassant l'idée que l'architecture, c'est non seulement que faire des... C'est la volonté d'apporter des contenus, des idées. Mon français, c'est pas très bon, mais je crois que c'est ce que tu as compris le français, ou l'étudiant a compris le français, à comprendre le français, pour moi c'est important. Alors, ce que je vais faire maintenant, c'est, nous pouvons aller exactement, ok. I think that for me it's better just to speak in English, yes, in order to present just the project and the main ideas that are under the project. So I'm going to speak about 5 projects, and my idea is not to make a description of the project. I will try to focus just only the couple of ideas that are contains the main reasons which explain precisely the way of facing the project. So the first project is a auditorium, Congress Hall, as an exhibition area. It's the result of a competition that was more or less 7 years ago. This competition was in Spain, when Spain could have competition. Now we are completely lost for architecture. We have not opportunities for doing anything. But in any case, this project was proposed in one of the most important and nicest historical villages in cities of Spain. Is Avila. I don't know if you have been there. It's very close towards the north of Madrid. So it's one of the most important historical heritage. In fact, is nominated as the UNESCO as heritage in the world. So, and just very close from here, we have to work and we have to develop this project. This is a river. It's a wonderful river, and here we have a slope that is going down just towards the river. So. I wanted to start defining the 2 main concepts that are going to explain the project. The first has to do with the idea of density. So in this photograph, that is a photograph coming from the first years of the 19th century, you can see this atavic idea of density. So it's something that is clear, yes, in the city, but it's something that you can, it's a kind of intuition that you can read precisely in these 3 people that were the kind of citizens that were living in this city. So it's a kind of density that you can breathe, you guess even in the looks of these people. But the same density is something that is really clear. All of these photographs are coming from the first years of the 20th century, more or less 1920. But here you can read this urban density. It's something that is very clear. In this time, the city was concentrated just inside the walls. There were not modern enlargements. And it's something that is very clear. I mean, all the housing is fully and completely the perimeter defined by the walls, but also what happened is that the way of the public space in this case is very interesting because it's just an opening, it's a void that is clearly open just in the grid constituted by this historical building. And it's the same process that was useful during the history in order to make the enlargement of the city. Because usually when the city wanted just to grow up outside the walls, they produced a kind of marketplace. A lot of buildings were surrounding, and immediately this public space was the origin, was the core from where the city started just to grow up. So this is very clear. But there is another kind of density that is a natural density, is not an artificial density as is in the city that you can read here. So for me, this photograph was fantastic, very, very moving, very strong. And you can read here this wonderful granite. Is all the landscape surrounding the outskirts, surrounding the city, the outskirts, are precisely the main feature of the landscape is this kind of granite that is continuously trying to escape from the soil. And the same granite that was taken and used just for making this kind of medieval construction. So in this context, I could define it with this idea of density, and precisely just here in this slope, on this slope that was going down to the river. This is also a photograph that was taken in the first years of the 20th century. We have to build this Congress Hall, yes, auditorium, exhibition area. So from the top, the view from the top of the walls is very clear. So this is the esplanade where we have to work. And initially this was occupied, yes, but by a cow market that was demolished. And we have to work with this. This photograph, or this drawing, explains clearly our approach. The majority, there were 150 entries, more or less, 160 entries. And the majority of the project play a role. They wanted just to fight, to struggle with the walls. So majority of them were very precious yes, objects, architectonical objects, but without considering one important question that was, for me, is one of the most important resources for doing architecture, which is the topography. So they, in some way, they don't pay attention to this extraordinary important relationship with the walls. And they decided just to put, to rest the building buildings that were very unaware about the presence of the wall. So we decided to work with two ideas: manipulating the topography. This was the original slope. We modified, yes, the topography just here in order to create a building that could be read as something that is excavated. This guarantee that the height here of this building, which program was 30,000 square feet, extraordinary huge, especially taking into account the height that is necessary in the stage, could disturb the view of the walls from the distance. So we decided to fool this part of the topography, just making the most of this situation. The height of the building is very short in relationship with the wall. The second question that we get with this approach was to create an intermediate space, a kind of a square, a public space that is precisely the most important feature of the project, even more than the project itself. This space is used, of course, from the functional point of view, because they will organize some performance, but the most important is that you are paying attention to this public space, which establishes the relationship between the walls and the building itself. So the organization of the project is very, very simple. So we create some space, servant space, and some spaces that are services. And the access to the building always is just through the higher level, through the top of the building. And here you have some images which give you the information about the relationship, the real relationship between the building. A building that was extremely huge and the walls. So this is the space that we are creating. It's a real space, but at the same time it's quite conceptual, quite urban. Pay attention to this. At the same time that we are speaking about the density, we can speak also about fragmentation. So one of the most, at the end, it's not a contradiction, but so it's a kind of fragmentation is provide us also with the resource in order to make the composition of the building. And you can read from here how the material that we use for this building is exactly the same granite that was used for the walls. So I hope that in fact, yes, these photographs were taken 1 year ago, more or less, and now if you go to visit the building, yes, the color, the dust, all the stone is acquiring, just with the humidity, this color. This is the access. And then what happened is that precisely, and this is the third question that I wanted to underline, is that all the space of the entry of the building in some way could be read as the continuation with the wall. So the wall appear as the last facade of this building. In fact, what happened is that this space, intermediate space, in some way is part of the building, and at the same time, the building is part of the wall. We are creating a very intensive public space just here. All the space that are surrounding the auditoriums are precisely just playing this ambiguous but rich, in my opinion, visual relationship, yes, with the walls. So this is the access. We access just to the auditoriums just through the top level. We will speak later about all of this question of the light that is extremely important in this building, where all the program is sunk, in fact. So this is the access, and you can read here the auditoriums. And another question that is extremely important, and that we will see later in the next project, is the question of the roof. I always try to explain to my students how important is the roof. The roof is not only a facade. The roof explains very well many of the contents, structural and spatial content of the buildings. Here, the roof was, of course, very important, yet not only because it's the most important facade seen from the top of the walls, that is clear, but also because we manipulate this roof in order to provide natural light to all the different levels, stories, where which contains the program of this project. So we work, yes, we try to excavate continuously the roof in order to provide always natural light. We use also a material for covering just the boxes of the auditoriums that is a glass that has a mirror behind it, and which guarantee that at least the 90% of the light, natural light, is reflected and leaded just towards the underground levels. In fact, one of the main features, I'm happy with this, is that they don't spend a lot of light, but the most important thing is that, in fact, the natural light is something that you appreciate very well, even in the lowest levels. One question that is very important is the way of treating the relationship between the inside space, that for me is absolutely important. And repeat that one of the things that, in my opinion, has been lost during the last years in architecture is precisely this question of the inside space. So students in general and a lot of architects are much more concerned about how the buildings seems, how the appearance of the buildings. Thinking even that they can establish with these elements a relationship with the public space. I think that is completely false. The only way of establishing a relationship between the public space and the building is precisely treating the private space. That is absolutely important. So in this case, all the openings are trying to underline not only the walls, is in the south side, this is towards the north. Then is treating the landscape here is treated as if they were framed in a picture. Exactly the contrary, what happened in the walls, because with the walls we were interested in creating this spatial continuity. Here we are interested in framing, in fact, this wonderful and very powerful landscape. So there is another question that is very important. Here in the plan you can read, this is mainly the auditoriums area, but there was an exhibition area. An exhibition area that, according to the program, they prefer, I suggest, but they prefer to have a kind of independence in terms of use. So many times the exhibition area are closed and the auditoriums are working, and just exactly the contrary. So we decided to create from this space, this public space where it's possible to make, especially during the summer, some performances and exhibition, a direct access to this exhibition area. But the most important thing is the reasons, because I decided to change completely the geometry and also the character, the expression, the different expression. Fascinated again, and I'm reminding you the first photograph with the bridge on this wonderful piece of granite. I was very fascinated. First time that I came there, yes, I have been many times, but when I have to face the competition, I remember that I came just one time alone, and yes, I was walking through the walls, and I was completely fascinated by this wonderful dialogue between the granite that is the nature and the walls that is the artificial, the abstraction, the artificial work of the man. So we decided to work in some way, in a similar way here. So this is the building which contains the auditoriums, but at the same time, as we have modified the topography here, we need to create a more organic, we could say, pieces that would provide us with the possibilities of making this go down just towards the river. So I decided to work with this more organic piece which could contain just these exhibition areas, looking for the contracts with these other, but at the same time there were a kind of reference ambiguity just with the walls. So the piece is, this piece, exhibition piece is detached from the main building, yes, in the space, public space level, but at the same time here, yes, in the first underground there is a continuity. So it's the same, functionally is the same building. But it's a quite huge piece. In fact, it's 60 meters by 35. And the idea was try to look for the maximum expression of these structural elements. I mean, if I decided to do this organic piece, is something that you cannot treat in a not ambitious way. So I decided to cut. For me, it's very difficult to face this kind of informal architecture. I could do it, but I need to translate this just to some planes. Then I decided to cut each meter just this organic form, and then we origin these kind of ribbons that at the same time as resting in this hanging just also this mezzanine. So there is not, all the structure is concentrated in these 2 points. So these ribbons are very, very extremely thin. It's just only 1 centimeter thin, and they are reinforced just in order to avoid the torsion just here, but they have a meter. And they reproduce exactly the cuts of the surface that is covering this more organic piece. It's very successful. They organize exhibition of lorries, cars, you know, that is not for artistical exhibition. It's just for everything, and it's very huge. This space. Always the reference just towards the walls. That is extremely important, of course. Next project is not as huge as the first one. It's not as large, but it's quite interesting, precisely because of the site. So we are speaking just now about the city that is in the northwest of Spain. So it's a climate completely different. In any case, it's Orense. Orense is a city is bigger than the other city. We are working for what we are doing here is developing just a new facility, specifically just a covered swimming pool just for the university, and the university occupy all of this space. So the university has 2 different parts of the campus. There is a campus that is completely citizen, is in the middle of the, is in the close to the downtown, historical downtown of the city. But there is another part of the campus that it seems that is out, surrounding this park. And this campus is divided by this RAS motorway. So it's not a motorway, it's a big street, it's a big road, but that is crossing the city. So I propose just the local council, independently of this building, that they have to try to join, but it's not easy. In any case, the president of the university offered me the possibility of working in any part of this perimeter. And I decided to use the higher point for many different reasons, but the first one, here you can see the housing that is surrounding this part of the campus. This is the campus. The other part of the campus is there. They have a bridge just for avoiding this rush traffic. And I decided to work for one reason, just because I wanted just to close as much as could be possible just the swimming pool just towards the city. I proposed the university with the very poor means that I have doing just this building, that if this swimming pool we could establish, I know that it's not possible to avoid this physical interruption here, but we could establish a relationship and that could be very fruitful for the use of the swimming pool, but also just institutional terms towards with the university. So here, probably in Switzerland, is very easy for understanding this, but not in Spain. What unfortunately, instead sharing yes the different facilities between the different institutions, the problem is that each institution repeat the different facilities. So at the end, what happens is that we have no money for maintenance, all the services, and that is one of the problems. That's a matter. So I convinced the president of university and the president of local council that this could be a swimming pool financed by both. They could save money, and everybody, the students and the people of the city, could use it. That is very obvious, but in Spain it's important. It takes just a big effort doing this. So the second question that is very important, especially considering how the height of this housing is, again, the roof. But the roof at the same time there are two. One is the roof. So the roof as something that is summarizing also the structural decisions of this swimming pool, as the answer that we give for the necessity of providing natural light inside, especially taking into account the decision that was taken considering the topography. So I decided that would be much more interesting to access just to the swimming pool through the level that is coming directly from the housing, and then what we could do is create this kind of basement, this kind of plinth, where we could house all the mechanical system and the basement and the water, just concentrating, creating this plinth. That will house all the mechanical system, and then we can live completely free the space that is finishing this cantilever, just hanging on the campus. So it is possible to stay here, diving or just swimming just here, and then you have a view on the horizon that is very, very interesting. So. And this is all the project. So this is it's very well organized, very clear. Again, a perimeter that concentrates the servant programs, and these are the services. The swimming pool are quite huge. In fact, we have to save just a span here of around 40 meters. So the structure, all these beams that define the shape of the ceilings at the same time are defining the shape of the roof. This is the final solution. This is the access. We access directly just to the top level, and there is a ramp making the most of the building. We try just to solve the urbanization of this area. So this is the image from. It's very easy to read the general structure of the building. How this is hanged is in a cantilever towards the university campus. We use exactly the same materials of the area, just this runic, that in order to define the basement, that's something that is very strong, and just the other elements, because precisely here, this is the level of the swimming pool, but there is a slope here, is a ramp, where the students could be just light, just they stay just lying there, just chatting or just seeing the. So for here is very you lost completely, and then you have this vision towards the landscape and towards the. And that is very funny because here there are some students that are just arranging meetings to the students that are at the same time in the library that is here. So some of them are in the library, some of them are, and then they arrange the meeting for having dinner, yes, with interesting. They have their own code. So as here, what happened is that because here in this perimeter you have the lights very close, but here you are losing the light, and in order to keep this uniformity, this uniform light through all the mirror of the water, is created these skylights. Everything seems very, very extraordinary light. So in fact, the idea was to transform a structure that is very heavy just in something that is very light. The next project is a very interesting project. Again, for me, I received the offer of 2 different plots of 2 different parts of the city for doing this project. Is a archaeological museum for the Basque Country in the capital of the Basque Country, Vitoria. I'm from the Basque Country, and I know my region very well. And we have the opportunity of working just here in the downtown, in a place that is where the social grid is very conflictive. So the majority of this housing, many of them are completely empty, and other one are just full fine migration. But the worst is that majority of people that is living here from the country, they are supporters of the terrorist group ETA. So politically and socially it was very conflictive area. And we decided just to work in this area, instead choosing the other possibility that was offered by the government in the outskirts, because I always think that in the capacity of architecture, yes, for transforming actually the site, for transforming the context, basically. And I have this kind of confidence. I think that, but I can be ingenious, but I think that we have wonderful examples of this transformation. I don't believe that architecture can solve everything, of course, but it can help a lot. So it's a very complex area. So this was the plot. The plot is this part of the area, and also this other area. This building was demolished, and then we have a L-shaped plot. There is a street here very narrow that is 5 meters high, higher than this other street, also very narrow. You can read here just this typical medieval structure with the long plots and very narrow. And also, of course, there are some remains of the Renaissance times with the palace, etc., etc. But we have to work here. The program was quite complex, more or less 8,000 square feet. Of course, we have to include some archives, some private areas where the members of the museum, they have to classify the different pieces that are coming from the ground, or just taking photographs or laboratories, etc., etc., and also another private areas as the direction, administrative areas. But of course, the most important was the exhibition area. So this is you can see here how narrow is the area where we have to work. Here there is another museum, was a piece that was transformed, was restored, yes, 10 years ago, in my opinion, not in a very correct way, but it's something that I want to underline. I have to work just here, in any case, and this is an institutional building, and although I don't like very much, I think that I have to play with this real situation. So, The approach of the project is coming from two ideas. The first one is in relationship with the site and the relationship with the city, with the downtown, in fact. So immediately we decided L-shape for one reason, because precisely as the downtown is so dense, there is not public space, or there is little public space. I wanted to create a little public space, a little courtyard that could provide us with with certain importance to the access. We are not doing a housing or dwelling. We are just creating an institutional building. For one hand, so this idea of creating this courtyard provide us with the importance to the access. For me, how you access, how you get in the building is extraordinarily important. So one of the most important, interesting fragments of the history of architecture is precisely how you arrive and how you get in the building. It's not, this can be solved just opening a door. It's something, so this was important. The second question is that then we could establish an intermediate element that we could create an intermediate level that could establish a relationship between the two buildings. And of course, with this, I have a kind of perspective that I couldn't find just with this very narrow street. So then I decided just to concentrate here all the services, administrative services mainly, and I choose this narrow geometry that is playing, yes, with the same geometry that you can see, yes, through the city. At the same time, this provides me with the possibility of hiding this airful wall that was, in terms of scale, very disturbing. So we house here also the temporary exhibition without necessarily just getting the main building. So the second, I don't know if I have, sorry, let me, okay, this one. So we access through this ground floor, and all the all the archives were just housing in some underground levels. In fact, we have two underground levels, but we access to the building through a bridge, and then what happens is that we have a ground floor here, which where we can house just the photograph archive, yes, etc., etc. So this is the, okay. It's something that you can read here in this photograph. The two parts of the building, this that is playing precisely with this narrow plot, and how this other piece is just acquire a certain importance. In the plan, it's very easy to read this part and this other one. This is this courtyard with the access. This access is closed, just precisely because this social context is very conflictive. I have to say immediately that after finishing this project, I was speaking a lot with these people that is living here. So they are so proud of this area that the area that was all the walls were completely painted. So the local council spent €2 million a year for cleaning all the walls, and now there is not anything is painted. So everything is very clean, and they have assumed a kind of, this is, I explained that at the end what we are doing here was a museum that is explaining the origin of the Basque Country. So we'll have been stupid just to spoil this building. And they are completely proud that something is changing in this area. So this is the exhibition areas and the temporary exhibition with the direct access from outside. Of course, when you are working in this kind of context in the downtown, you have to be very, very subtle when you are treating the height, this height displaying with this other one. At the same time, this is trying to get here, but I don't want to finish just here. Then I leave this level just here, and then I put behind the limit of this part of the building. So this kind of, and this is the carrier and the access to the main building. Well, the second idea is coming precisely from the idea that I have about an archaeological museum, which is the most important part of the museum, of the archaeology. The most important material is not the stone, is not the copper, is not the bronze, is not the iron, is the time. The time is precisely which transforms any material in archaeological, because it's the time which provides with significance to the elements. But the time is very difficult to represent in architecture. Then I wanted to represent the light as a kind of element that is substituting this importance of the time. It's the light when you discover the pieces that are underground, is precisely the light which transform, which provide with important significance to these elements. So my idea was to play with the idea of the light and with the idea of surprise. That is something that, and with a very close relationship with the pieces. An archaeological museum, in my opinion, is something that has to be very subtle. So the darkness is much more important than the lightness. And then if I'm going to use the light has to be defined as a kind of material, not as something that is spread through the building. So the relationship with the pieces has to be very personal, has to be very intimated. So for this reason, I decided to create a kind of coffer. So these are the facade that are extremely thick, this facade. And I make the most of the thickness of this facade for housing here the different vitrines which contains the different pieces. So it is possible to get to these vitrines, because you know that the mechanical systems that are required for the maintenance of these pieces are very demanding. So all the mechanical systems are lit through these, we could say, thick walls, thick facades, and then at the same time it provides with enough spaces for getting, yes, to the different pieces. So we create a kind of corridor here. So, and this is the result. It's a building that is extremely thick. I want to underline the thickness, the deepness in some way of the time, if you want, or yes, because the fact of discovering the pieces, the fact of providing these pieces with light, with time, is the most important thing. So this kind of coffer, I don't like to use metaphors, but sometimes in architecture, because I think that the metaphoric architecture I'm not very interested in, but I think that sometimes to times metaphor is useful in order to fire something in the back of your mind, and then you start. Of course, the most important thing is the development of the project, the contents of the project, but times to times a certain metaphor could be useful just in order to generate an idea. So, and what happened is that these big holes and thick holes is in some way from inside, and they are another kind of vitrines which show us, yes, the city itself, because the city is also an archaeological element. We are living in a very old, 1,000 old downtown. So this facade, the elements, the bronze elements that we are using for doing this facade is, again, this bronze remind us, yes, the archaeological material. We use these kind of pieces that are more open areas here in order to provide with light when we need, or just in this ground floor where are the laboratories and the classification areas, and then what happens is that the researching areas, and then these provide with light. Inside, what happens is that everything is completely black. We use this black wood that is covering the ceilings, the roofs, and also the walls. And the most important thing probably is this kind of the prints that are crossing all the slabs of the building and precisely are defining in quite the materiality of the light. That for me is very important in this case. There is a staircase that precisely is is defining the perimeter of these big boxes, dark boxes, which contain the different pieces and that are open to the corridor. So people cross just the darkness, suddenly they go out just to the lightness, to the clarity of the day, and they get again to these very dark areas where the majority, where here you can read the vitrines. So from here it is possible to get in this very thick wall and to control all the different vitrines. So these volumes are providing with this very volumetric, trying to define the light, not in terms, of course this piece illuminate the rooms, but at the same time I'm trying to define very clearly that the light as a material is as important as the pieces themselves. We use this bronze, but the bronze is blend, so there is a triangle, a special piece, yes, in order to underline again the deepness, we could say the tectonicity of all the project, but at the same time in order to avoid that people could paint on the walls, because it's not possible to read the painter, because there is not a flat surface, so it wasn't a strategy very efficient. And I have only 2 projects that I will finish, yes. This is the Spanish Pavilion for the Universal Exhibition in Zaragoza. There was a national competition for doing this project, and a week before the presentation, I have not idea. And I had not idea for many different reasons, because I think that this kind of exhibition is a waste of time. It's a kind of fair of vanities, where the architects that are concerned just only with the calligraphy, with the appearance of the buildings, with about how the project appear more than about the project art, they are precisely focused on this kind of fairs. So I was very concerned about this, because a pavilion is something that is useful for 6 months and disappear. So finally I was sure that the building, I prefer to speak about the building, will be used after the exhibition fair. In fact, I'm transforming this building in an institute for studying the climate change. And I'm very as a research center. So that's important, because otherwise I wouldn't have accepted to participate in this competition. So I was working in a building that will be used, that's very important, for 3 months, for 4 months as a Spanish pavilion, but that after we're speaking about the building. The second question was that the main issue of this exhibition was the question of the water. So the question of the water led us immediately to the question of the environmental issues. And for me it was very important, was an opportunity to explain which is my idea about this question. And the second question that was very important was the idea of representation. So was the building of my country. And I have to express with this building not precisely the country that the journalists or just the politics appreciate. So personally, I think that I explained very clear. This question of environmental question is something that unfortunately is treated with the high sophisticated technologies. I think that it's much more important to work with the intelligence of architecture. So I prefer to give more architecture, to do more sensitive and architecture. So the architecture that I appreciate is something that always has taken into account very clearly the relationship between the means that are used and the targets that I try. So it is extremely important to have this very clear. It's not only a question of economical terms, it's an intellectual attitude. So that, in my opinion, is very important. So, and the second question was the kind of country that I wanted to represent. Majority of people, especially when this exhibition in '92, in the 2002, were open, majority of the politics and journalists of my country, they were very proud about our country. They thought that Spain was completely rich, that Spain could spend money, thousands of millions of euros, that we in 25 years we have passed quickly from a poor country, or at least a country that has to send the people to other countries, for instance to Switzerland, for working in a very rich country, that we could pardon the life to everyone. So, in my opinion was much more closer to what is happening just now. That we are a country with a lot of problems, that we used to be a country of new rich, and that it was much more concerned with, much more interesting in these people, in this architect, that during the 50s and the 60s, in every poor country, what very poor means, just using what we have, because we have not glass, we have not steel, we have not high technologies that appear in other countries. They have to do a wonderful modern architecture, so with ideology, but using the very modest materials and means that they can have, they could have, because they have artisans. They could use the wood, they could use the ceramic, they could use, but very simple things. And they achieve a wonderful architecture, modern architecture. One of the most important in Europe. I personally feel, yes, grandson of this kind of architect, and not sons of much more concerned about how to appear the same that other countries. So that was very important. So I have not ideas. I remember that with two ideas, I was just thinking about these two ideas, the relationship with the, how to give an answer to my way of understanding the relationship with the environmental questions, the means, and the second, how to offer an image of my country, very rich because not for the money, very rich because was intelligent, and because we use the most of what we had. And then I remember, this is the, you can see here everything with a lot, very fascinating calligraphic architecture, very expensive, doesn't matter, we are rich, we have a lot of money, the Zaha Hadid Bridge, that is the most important bridge in the world, that costs exactly 20 times more than any bridge in the world. But this, no, the president of the local council, I remember telling Zaragoza, that is still has at least 2,000 years, was in the map just because Zaha Hadid has arrived there for doing a bridge. Fantastic. So much better, much more important Zaha Hadid than the history of the city. Then I was returning from Toulouse of giving a lecture, and was in October at 7 o'clock, and the sun was dawning, and then I remember to see a wonderful forest, a Napoleonic forest, very well ordered, yes, fantastic, and with the light sliding through the trunks of the trees, absolutely fantastic, with a lot of reflection. And I immediately understood that I have a quite architectonical space for doing the project, because in Zaragoza you have to take into account that during the summer the temperature was 45 degrees. So what's better than a forest that is fresh, that has close relationship with the water, that at the same time it establishes a kind of mechanisms, mechanical systems of a movement of the water, so that in geometrical terms is something, this metaphor could be translated immediately to the idea of architecture. So on the other hand, there were displayed a lot of exhibitions. The most important subject of a building of this feature is the access. So this means, I don't know, 60,000 people a day. it's not possible to have an idea about the exhibition. The most important thing is precisely the space that you walk for getting the building, so the spatial experience. More than a building is a kind of process. So, and a forest is a kind of process, where you discover exactly the space that you want. And that is what I decided. So, we follow exactly the perimeter of the plot that was given, and I defined 750 pillars. And the 750 pillars was not the previous decision. Is that we were studying the different point of view, and at the end, we count, and there were 750. Just in the middle of the I prefer to explain this because this slide explains perfectly the project. In the middle of the trunks, there are some glass boxes without a structure, which are displayed all the exhibitions that usually are in this kind of exhibition and in this kind of pavilion. So it's very clear how, and then in this photograph you can see how everything was built. We stand up just the pillars from these beams that is extremely thin, the roof, are hung just this structure using these wood beams, so defining just the boss houses with 120 meters, and all the space is completely free. And precisely this decision provides us with the possibility of adapting the project to this new institute, because the only thing that we have to do is to put some furniture and so on. So it's very easy. It's very easy. Then the first idea was precisely to do the columns just in wood. But I was quite concerned about the maintenance of this wood, and then I was working with the idea again. I was fascinated about how to use a material which is the terracotta, that has been very important in the poor Spanish architecture, poor in material, poor in terms of materials, but very rich in ideological terms. And I decided how we could manipulate again this material. The terracotta is the most humble ceramic, it's not the rich ceramic. In order to, and I remember that I went to the East Coast, where there are a lot of artisans that they know very well his work, but now they are doing pieces just for the tourists that they sell just in the motorways. And I decided, do you want to work in an important building? I need 7 artisans, very small workshops. And they started to work in this material that is very easy, because the only thing that we have to do is to hang here. There are 30,000 pieces like this, extremely easy and extremely cheap, because we produce just thousands of meters that we cut every 80 centimeters, extremely cheap, and that could provide with this richness in terms of texture, in terms of quality. So the ground floor was a swimming pool. It's a surface completely of water, and then what happened, using some bombs, we go up the water to some deposit, to any deposit that are just in the roof. And during the night, we leave just the water going down in between the steel core and just the ceramic. The ceramic became humid, and just with the air and with some depression that we create with some air circulation, cross-air circulation, what happened is that they absorb heat from the atmosphere, and then what happened is that at least during the night, we achieve 6 extra degrees going down the temperature. So this allows us to use the air conditioner just 3 hours later, which is absolutely important in economical terms. This is the image of the building. Of course, much more important, and we don't use extra panels, solar panels. So no, everything was. Of course, the most important thing is looking for the shadows. What happened is with all of these columns inside there were light, but never they were direct. The sun never touched directly. So it was extremely interesting because they were absolutely rich in terms of shadows, and so the boxes are, the reflection of the water that was extremely rich is something that is not possible to control. But in this project happened one thing that happens just only in some project. You define the rules, and at the end what happens is that the rules work themselves. And then you discover things that you have never thought that are absolutely fantastic. We work with some Portuguese people, and all the elements that we used was just galvanized steel, because this was recuperated, yes, this recuperated galvanized steel, and then we defined these frame windows that we move just with an engine, and what happens is that they provide us with the cross ventilation, and we use also the cork, this covered of the treat, that is just in order to, from this project, we create many different materials. In fact, now we are working with this cork for covering some facades. That is very interesting. Everything is made, in the rest just with wood. These are the doors, 8 meters high, that were open, symbolic doors, because when the King of Spain went just to open the exhibition, we decided, yes, that he should open these doors, and that the doors were completely open during the exhibition and they were closed after. So all the box, the glass boxes which contains where are displayed as the exhibition, they have some bridges, and then you are crossing through these bridges, but you are in the middle of this ceramic forest. Everything is made very humble. In fact, I'm very proud of telling that the surface of this building is exactly the same surface that the British Pavilion by Zaha. The cost is 20 times less. And I told, when the local council, the president of the local council came very proud, and I tell, are you sure that the bridge by Zaha is 20 times better than my project? You pay 20 times more, it should be 20 times better than my project. Doesn't matter. The king, that is the most intelligent of all of these people in Spain, I remember that when he came just to the pavilion, he was coming, Pachi, I am absolutely frightened, because I have crossed this bridge. Fortunately, I have my bodyguards, but it's not a bridge because you can see the river. But it's not an exhibition area because everything is completely dark. So I was frightened for crossing this bridge. I can read the bridge, the river, so I don't, and at the same time, and this will be as this bridge of Florencia, where there are some things are displayed, but there is nothing. How much has cost to the government this? The king was very smart. Well, okay, it's something. This precisely is the king's where the king receive welcome just to the different authorities. At night was very important because they wanted just to put a lot of lights, and so we decided to work just only again with the water. Yes, so we defined this perimeter with the LEDs, and then what happened is that the light itself works as a kind of projecting the light. So, and I will finish with this project that for me is especially interesting because it's a project that I have done for my daughter. And David, that is here, where is that? Working in my office, a very brave architect, was precisely just in the workplace finishing this project. So he knows very well, but now I'm going to explain the reason. This is a ballet, a wonderful ballet. It's a Switzerland ballet. It's a quite Swiss ballet. That is in the north of Navarra. It's just more or less 20 kilometers. It's a very Basque ballet. In fact, the oldest Basque language is spoken in this ballet. So, and I mean, I could give the same explanation probably about the Swiss ballet. So, but it's a valley with a lot of horses. There's a wonderful valley here. This is a protected area. All of this area is protected. And the most important thing in order to, for me, was this idea that is the same than here. These big houses, peasant houses, where the main feature precisely is just this idea of concentration, of density again. It's a big volume, which is defined just by the roof. The roof is very important. So, and the most important is how you house everything here. In the ground floor, you have the animals. In the first floor, people is living. In the top is just for the grain that provide just with resources for living during all the year, the animals and just the person. So everything is. So when I spoke about this abstract way of establishing the relationship with the nature, someone could tell me that this relationship is worse than all of these blocks, all of this architecture that is trying to be hidden in the nature, that is completely complex, has complex about the relationship with the nature. At the moment, there are architectures that try to be blocks and to be absolutely hidden, yes, in between like a mountain, yes, in the underground. So I prefer to speak about, I think that this architecture is absolutely proud of the artificial, about the abstraction, about how the monkey has evolution, and at the same time has. So when I received yes, I decided to create this horse. It's a horse farm. It's a horse club because my daughter is he's member of the Spanish team riding horse, dressage horse, and then we decided to create this farm here with. But this farm is very funny because it's not only a farm for practicing for training horses. Because here, the Foundation Architecture and Society, we organize on meetings of architecture which are called Campus of Ulzama, and where a lot of students some students of architecture and some professors and very well-known architects, we meet here together in order to speak about architecture. There are some manifests, there are some statesmen, etc., etc., etc. So. Independently of the tracks that are necessary for training the horse, independently of the stables, were necessary some meeting points, some meeting areas, and also some houses. So in some way, the complexity of the program remind us the kind of houses that you can read here, very huge, very clear, unity, that very, and this is the way of working. This is the result. But the building itself is explaining that with two ideas. The first idea is just to use the structure that is defined by the requirements that are given by the tracks, the Olympic tracks is covered. There is one outside, another is inside. Span is a very efficient that is given by the stables. The second question that is very important is how to express that it's possible to do a contemporary architecture preserving all the elements that you can read in the traditional architecture. So the roof, the inclined roof, but also these cantilevers that preserve us of the writing. So we have not made something different that is done in these other buildings. But at the same time, recognizing the importance of this pre-system architecture, it is possible to provide our project with a quite contemporary expression. So, this is very clear. This is the track. These define a big structure, and these are the stables which define another narrower structure. This structure is followed just here, and then it contains 3 houses, and this structure is followed just here, and it contains some meeting points for meetings about architecture and some housing. These are the two very elemental and very simple structures. There is not more explanations, in fact. The only is that we use the same material just for the roof and for the facade. This obviously is my daughter. The only thing that we use is the... Another thing that is interesting is we use the oaks that you can find precisely in this forest that are surrounding this area. These are housing, this is meeting points for architecture, this is the track for training, with a very simple and very efficient structure. There is a continuous relationship. This is a very interesting photograph because shows how the main envelope that define the necessity, define the space for this track is transformed here in some housing. From the house you have a direct relationship with the track. These are the housing. Everything is made in a very, very simple way. We use the wood that is coming from the forest that are surrounding. And here you can read how this structure go up just here because we need a higher volume in order to house two houses that we have here. The weather is very nice. In fact, so it's very easy, very difficult just to try to do an architecture that could compete with the nature. So it's much better try to do an architecture very abstract, very clear, because it's the only way that we have the humans have just for establishing an intelligent relationship. I don't know another. Disappear is something that for me, intellectually, is something that I'm not interested in. So, I will finish just with the recommendation to my students. Chers élèves, nous sommes heureusement face à une discipline riche et intéressante. Ne la réduisons pas seulement à l'expérimentation graphique. Des risques et de l'espoir. Il faut faire de l'architecture par conséquent un chance s'y prendre. Vous avez une responsabilité et vous vous retrouvez dans des moments difficiles, spécialement quand vous vous soulèverez face aux déjà connus, à ce qui est facile et voudrez aller plus loin. Faites-le, parce que vous vous amuserez. Je suis absolument optimiste. Je crois que nous n'avons pas never we have had so wonderful generations of architects. The students that we have at the moment are fantastic. You have a lot of information. We have not to reduce this information. Precisely because we have a lot of information, it's required to be much more precise evaluating this information. Trying to distinguish exactly what was the travel about, what is just images, just calligraphy. I think that you have a lot of possibilities. Never we have had so wonderful young architects. Make the most of this. Good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Maintenant peut-être maybe you have some time for questions. Si quelqu'un a une question.
This isn't about architecture, but about the horse. It looks like he can't put his head out the window. Are there bars there?
Yes, there are bars. There are some bars. Just because it's unbelievable, because the horse can jump everything. No, but it's very important. It's a question that a lot of stables are completely hidden without light, without realizing that it's very important for the horses as for the person, just to have light, to have direct contact. So the horses is very well studied. The horses that has direct relationship with the nature, with outside, they are much more relaxed than other horses. They live better and they live more time.
Okay, on peut poser des questions en français, in English or in Spanish.
French.
Français.
I have to improve my French. Je devrais m'améliorer Améliorer.
Un petit peu, ouais, mais c'était pas mal.
Améliorer, c'est bon? C'est bien dire ou non? C'est bien dire? Améliorer mon français. Pour les prochaines années, je parlerai comme un Robespierre, comme un français, ou Yaz Michola.
Voilà, on ne savait pas comment il parlait. On sait pas comment il parlait. Ben merci, je crois que le projet était très clairement expliqué. Maybe I have a question just about your foundation, Architecture and Society. I'm very interested in what in your project, what you want to make a bridge between architects and different area of society. But the question is what you do concrètement, precisely.
For me, it's the most important project. In fact, it's something that I started with the founders of my family. I wanted, for me, I mean, one of the problems, at least in Spain, you are living in Switzerland that is completely different. The cultural level of the country here is much higher. I mean that you have a tradition in the sense, and probably the Switzerland society recognizes that the role of the architect is very important in order to make buildings where it is possible to live better. In Spain, what has happened during the last year is that the people in general, the society, confuse architecture with star architecture. So with all of these kind of architectures that has been displayed in the newspapers as very, I don't know, we could say the spectacular architecture. So without recognizing that this kind of architecture was as commercial as the other architecture that was just only concerned about the business and the construction. I wanted with this foundation to express precisely to the society that there are a serious architecture which main target is precisely to do places where people could work, could live much better, enjoying, so that precisely architect and precisely during this time, this society is being very successful ideologically, because we create the foundation where everyone was concerned about the architecture of the spectacle. Now we're establishing a close relationship with the intelligent people of the society. So because our target is not speaking just only for architects, we have been living in a quite endogamic situation. I think that we have to explain to the society why is worth the travel actually to contract an architect, why it is important architecture, how there are an architecture that is better than other one, how there is an architecture that which relationship with the city or just with the landscape is much better, is not spoiling as other architecture. So was in some way foundation is a mean for establishing a direct dialogue with other people that is in fact the members of the foundation are economists, are politics, are artists, novelists, so there are a lot of people. We are concentrating our activities in three programs. One program that is a big conference every 2 years. The last one was called Architecture Plus for Less, and where the speak just not only architect, speak another people coming from another disciplines, with very people that with authority that make a kind of contracts. Was very interesting because there were a lot of contracts between the way of analyzing architecture by architects and by other people. So it's a conference that is very intensive with discussions, and recently has been published a very interesting book summarizing the contents of this conference. But there are another two programs that are following two main ideas. The first one is the architectural relationship with the industry, that are able, that could be useful in order to establish a relationship between architecture and society, is precisely the relationship with the industry. Here in this Polytechnic school, probably something that is very clear, but not in our school. because we have trained the students for being big stars of architecture, and this is completely, the students are completely disappointed when they finish and they can find work in the society. So this idea of architecture and industry is establishing some relationship very fruitful, because architecture has a close relationship, and we are opening some works even with architects in the industry. It's very interesting. We are developing materials, we are developing, and the second one is architecture and develop. And we are focusing our work precisely in the South America, where at the moment, because our society are very developed, so we have a lot of means, we are very rich. I mean, in some way, we have not ideas. So, and I think in order to recuperate this idea of that architecture can transform society, can transform urban structure. So in order to recuperate, yes, the hope for architecture, I think that is extremely important to work, for instance, for us, for Spanish people in South America. And we are working together in with very good. We are working in a quite serious way. No, I don't mean that sorry. No, do you know what happened? That we are not making charity. We are making investigation. Sorry, I don't want that the ONG don't work in a correct way. I respect a lot. But this is different. What I wanted to express is that it's completely different. For making some experience, but for instance, we are creating, our work, for instance, is creating a master of architecture and develop, where are going to participate important architects, very good architects that want to be committed with this idea. So we are focusing our work in the training more than in another ONG activities. And the last one precisely are the meetings in this horse farm, where we make some statements, and in these meetings participate people coming from many different, for example, in the last one was the last president of the Spanish government, speaking about, or just was in the previous one were the last Secretary of Living of United States. So we established some.
And the king, of course.
Yes. And
the king of Spain. Yeah.
The king of Spain has been here, but not for speaking about architecture.
Thank you very much. It's very ambitious. You should export the idea outside. In Switzerland too.
No, for me it's the most important project, in fact. But because, I mean, training at the school is good, but it's not enough. This foundation, for instance, on Friday, I'm leaving here at 8 o'clock because at 10 o'clock we have some meetings with some industry, in very important meeting in Madrid, where he's participating the most important architect of Spain for speaking about the relationship between architecture and industry and some of the most important industries of Spain. And we are trying to join our force in order to for instance, to develop new systems for making some much cheaper and much better and much more interesting housing in the Spanish market, because it is possible. Many times are spoiled, just the idea. So it's something that I involve, I mean, I start with the foundation, but at the moment, we have fortunately we have a lot of followers. For instance, the president of the foundation was the former economy vice president of the government of Spain. There are novelists, there are people that is working in the cinema that you know perfectly. All of them. It's unbelievable how interested are the people in architecture.
Yeah, no, this is true. But they mean.
And how they need explanation, because usually architect speaks just only for architect. It's a big mistake.